Greetings, chemistry students. Today we're going to learn how to do ionic compound names from formulas using the main group elements. So that is a lot to say. So let's parse that out. Ionic compound, we know, is a cation and an anion bonding together. They're ions. The cation tends to give up its electrons, the anion tends to gain, and then the opposite is attracted. So ionic compound names from a formula. So we're going to learn how to write the names using main group elements. So the main group elements are all the ones that are not transition metals. We have the transition metals in the middle, and they have some special rules. But the easiest ones to do are the main group, when you combine the alkaline metal or alkaline earth metals with one of the nonmetals or the polyatomic ion from your polyatomic ion list. So let's give this a try. Now we have some rules, and these are going to go on your notes on your graphic organizer, and they look complicated. So let's just go through some examples using these steps. So our first example is calcium chloride. First step. Write the name of the first ion or polyatomic ion. Well, the first ion is calcium, and we just write the name. Calcium. We find it on our reference table. It's an alkaline earth metal, so you just write the name. It's not a transition metal, and it's not a polyatomic ion. If the ion is a transition metal, write the oxidation number. Well, we can skip that because calcium is not a transition metal. It's a main group metal. Then name of the second ion, if it's an element, monoatomic or a polyatomic ion. And the name of the second ion is chloride, CHL, chloride, from the chlorine. Remember, we are naming the ions, not the element. Metal ions are named. This will be the calcium ion, and this will be the chloride ion. We don't have to do anything else because, as we know from this name, we can determine the formula because calcium and chlorine bond the same way all the time. So, calcium chloride. We went through 1, 2, 3 steps. Name of the first element, we decided it's not a transition metal. The name of the second ion, and so our name, so the name will be calcium chloride. Let's try another one. Ooh, NH4Cl. Wow, okay, so we have NH4 is our only positive polyatomic ion. It's the only cation. So what we would do is we would follow the recommendations, write the name of the first element or polyatomic ion. The only one we have is ammonium. And then if the first one's a transition metal, well, polyatomic ions aren't transition metals. And then the name of the second ion. Well, we have chlorine, which is not a polyatomic ion. So this would end up being ammonium chloride. You just write the name of the first element or polyatomic ion, and then the name of the second ion or polyatomic ion, and you're good to go. Let's try this one. Looks complicated. Let's start. Step number 1, write the name of the first element, the first ion or polyatomic ion. This would be magnesium. If I see parentheses, well, the only time we see parentheses is when it is a polyatomic ion. So I'm going to find that one. And it is right here, page 7 on our reference table, PO4 with a -3, but we don't even have to worry about that. You just write the name of the second one. Phosphate. You gotta make sure that you copy it right. The reason we don't need the subscripts at all, because magnesium and the phosphate bond the same way every time. So if we're given this name, we can figure out what the formula is from the name. So no need to put those subscripts on all the time. And here we go, magnesium phosphate. So this time I'm going to do a scary looking one with you. Look at that. That just is so intimidating. But I'm seeing parentheses, NH4, once again the only cation on the polyatomic ion list. So I write the name of the first, ammonium. And then I'm seeing more than one letter, more than one element in this ion. So it must be a polyatomic ion, CrO4. So then you just have to find it. Chromate. Ammonium is not a transition metal, so we don't need to write any oxidation numbers. So all we need to do, we wrote the name of the first one. We don't need to do the second step because it's not a transition metal. And then just the name of the second ion. And we are going to copy chromate. So the name from this formula is just ammonium chromate. Pretty nice. So I'm going to stop here for a second, or why don't you pause and try to write the name from this formula. So that would be sodium phosphide. Let's try another one. CAN. Okay, I hope you paused and worked it out. CAN would be calcium nitride. Let's try another one. Why don't you pause and give this one a try. And this would be calcium hydroxide. Name of the first ion and the second polyatomic ion, since the first one is not a transition metal. Here's another one. Why don't you pause, see if you can work this guy out. And here it is, potassium hydroxide. The potassium and the hydroxide polyatomic ion. So today we learned how to write the names from formulas. Write the name of the first element. If it's not a transition metal, you can just go on and write the name of the second ion. If it's a transition metal, there's another step, and we're going to show that in another video. Thank you.